Welcome to the Fellowship of the Script, the podcast where we dive deep into the craft, struggles, and stories of filmmaking. I'm your host, Eric Bowder.
And I'm your other host, Ben Escobar.
Whether you're just starting out or you've been in the industry for years, this is the place for real talk about the art and business of film. Today, we're going to be talking about how to start working in the film and TV industry, but mostly film, because that's what Ben and I have the most experience with. So to start us off, Ben and I are going to talk about some personal stories about starting out and why we chose this topic. So I guess I'll kick it off by saying there are a ton of jobs and departments in film. You can go look at a chart that kind of has the structure of a cast and crew and see that there are literally a ton of departments and different positions in each one of those departments. And there is no one path to any of those positions. And there's also no reason why you can't wear multiple hats. Ben, do you want to kind of go into more detail about that?
Sure. I mean, they always kind of say the jack of all trades is a master of none. And I would say starting out, if you are like day one of your like filmmaking or artistic life choice, venture, it's very important to get an understanding of everything and take maybe the essentials course if you can get what I mean by that, which is like you got to know a little bit about the camera, you got to know a little bit about the writing software, you got to know a little bit about producing, you got to know a little bit about everything, so that way if you are a director you can be, first of all, understood as a competent leader, but then also understand yourself why you are choosing the certain path you're doing. And it should be a very educated choice and not just based on thoughtless because I felt like it or something like that.
What sounds cool.
Exactly. And it's also very impressive when you meet the expert. I would say that the best director would seek out the expert of the camera rather than the guy who is also a director, is also like writing, because at the back of his mind, he's going to be thinking, oh man, I hope my DP is actually focused in on like the camera like he's supposed to, and not just wishing he was directing and rewriting my script and giving me feedback, which is very, very real.
That's dark.
And so yeah, it's important to hone in on what you love, but also it's very important to enjoy a little bit of everything. If you're doing the freelance life, I think that's an important jack of all trades kind of lifestyle. But once you're really starting to focus in on that one thing, you want to kind of back pocket that you're that jack of all trades, I would say. But we can get more into that later.
Yeah, and before we get really into the nitty-gritty about how to pick a job position, I think it's important to start out by saying that no matter what position you have, it's important to be able to communicate to other departments what it is you're working on. So if you are, let's say, in the lighting department and you don't know how to communicate with the camera team, that's a big problem because you guys are supposed to work in unison. And that goes across the whole entire cast and crew. I mean, the actors need to have an idea of what the camera can see. The writer's going to be on set to be able to communicate what the scene is supposed to feel like and what the mood is and the tone and yada, yada, yada. So it's a big organism made up of smaller pieces that all either, I mean, you can see when bad movies come out, usually it's because there was bad communication. The vision got lost. There's so many things that can go wrong. That's why whenever something does turn out really good, it's kind of seen as a miracle. And even just getting a movie made is a miracle. So let's talk about how to pick a specific job or kind of get an idea of what maybe department you want to work in. So again, I think the way to kind of start, let's say somebody came to me and said, hey, I want to work in film, but I don't know what job I want to do. I would tell them, okay, first of all, here's this chart. You can Google this. Just type in like cast and crew on a film set, and there's usually a chart and it has all the departments and how it all trickles down from the director or the producer, or I guess a studio. And decide, okay, that sounds interesting, and then go do research. There is a ton of different resources out there. You can Google stuff. There's YouTube. A big YouTube channel that I recommend to people is Studio Binder. They have videos on all the different departments, and they get really into detail on stuff. And it's also there is some crossover between film and TV, but like I said, we are focusing on film here because that's where we have the most experience. But the same does kind of go for TV. It's just kind of on a bigger scale because they have to kind of do that over a larger story, a larger runtime. But I would recommend doing as much research as you can. And that's the good thing about today's day and age. You don't have to go to film school in order to find that information. Ben did go to film school, so we'll definitely talk about that here in a moment. But I think you have to decide right away, do you want to be behind the camera, in front of the camera? Do you want to be somebody in kind of like the creative department? Maybe you want to be a writer or a producer. And one of the ways to kind of figure out how a set works in real time is to get on set as a PA and interact with those different departments. If you do have a department you want to work in, then I've seen on sets where, PAs do what they're supposed to do. And then when there's downtime, they will actually go hang out with the department that they want to work in. So that's one way to do it. Ben, do you want to kind of talk about film school a little bit and how that could be a good option?
For sure. First of all, the thing about film school is that it is such divisive topic that you could go into a whole episode about it, and I think we should do a whole episode about it. But the first thing I will say about it is about the friends you make along the way in film school that will matter the most. And if you're lucky enough to financially be able to do it, or even if you're just doing like community college and it's a little to no cost for film school for you, it is very worth it to be in the occasion of other people that care about what you care about, and also who are willing to do it for free because they have to for class credit. And that is a very valuable currency that is not going to last for the rest of your life. And those 4 years or 3 years or 2 years that you're doing that in film school, it's very important to work with people who have skin in the game, even if it's a grade in class rather than skin in the game that's monetary. Late in life when you're like post film school and you're working with people that are trying to just get money, it's just like you're always going to be thinking in the back of your mind, are they doing it because they care about it or because of the money? And I think film school is very important to go through, to just get your feet wet, make mistakes in a very safe place, and do a lot of it, because you're going to have a lot of assignments in class. They're going to give you the prompts of what to do. You're going to have a lot of people who are hungry, and you're able to get to know yourself better in the occasion of other people being better than you. Like, how are you in competition? How are you on a team? Can you work in a team sincerely? Do you like being assigned the camera person for somebody else's short? Are you that guy who is thinking about, I wish I was the director, in the back of your mind while you're like pressing record for somebody else? Those are important lessons to go through, that film school is a wonderful place to just get it all out of the way for you, because you become a much, much better person. Now, in terms of connections and jobs afterwards, it's little to none. You'll be lucky if you get an internship. If you have a name drop college that you went to, then you can get an internship at a name drop place. And then if you do a good enough job, God willing, and they're paying you, then there's a track to grow up to the top. And then you got a LinkedIn that looks like a little fancy schmancy. But odds are, like, even then, that's not that valuable, because it's what you make of it. And again, this is a whole episode's worth of discussion, but this is all about nailing down what you want to do and why. And regardless of whether you're in school or not, a lot of what we'll discuss today is about the people that you're working with and friends with, whether you met them in school or whether you met them on TikTok, like I met Derek, or you met them through another film set that you happened to PA on and you got along, or some other situation. Those people are important to hold close, and you will get different and also important lessons from working with them and hearing their ideas, always saying yes, as if you are in school or something,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into whether you should go to film school or not. One of the biggest factors to me is age. When I got out of the Coast Guard, I was already 24. So for me, it was a pretty big decision to decide whether I wanted to commit, a couple of years to going to school for film, or if I wanted to try to figure it out on my own. And I think the pandemic kind of forced me to make that decision a little quicker than I originally wanted to. But ultimately, the thing to keep in mind is that when you go to film school, it's you're so busy with film school that it's kind of hard to find time to work on other sets, let alone your own projects. And so you have to decide if you want to get that kind of, I guess, guidance that you get from school, because it is, in general, film is a very hands-on industry. That's the way you learn, is by being hands-on and doing the job. So I don't think there's any wrong way to do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to film school, and I don't think there's anything wrong with just getting PA work or starting to write your own scripts, starting to direct your own scenes, act in your own scenes, all of those things. It's all about how you learn, and everybody's different. So I guess the first thing I want to say before we move on to our quick little ad break and then get into kind of how you level up your chosen job position once you settle on something is, where are you, and what is it that, like, what are your goals? I think it's much easier for an actor to take acting classes than it is to go to film school, unless they're going to go to an actual acting school. And those are a little, I mean, Ben, I think you can back me up here. There are film schools out there that are definitely a little shady in terms of the way that they practice things.
For sure.
It seems like Chapman is definitely more of a legitimate one. And I mean, even then, like you said, there's kind of some, I guess, varying results there. Some people say that it's really good for networking, and they build connections and kind of start to build the people that they're going to work with in the future in film school, where, you know, you're not really going to get that when you're kind of starting out on your own. You don't know anybody. So, but there is that time that you have to commit if you're going to go to film school, and obviously the financial burden that comes with that. You know, that's one of the reasons why I joined the Coast Guard. It was to originally have a way of paying for film school, because it is expensive. It is, you know, it's an art school. It's not like you're going to a technical or a trade school. You know, it's definitely treated a little different in the academic world than a normal college.
I want to add one thing to that about the schools. Like, some are better than others. Like, you're always, no matter what the school, even if it's USC, even if it's Chapman or UCLA, you're going to have complaints, and people will be actively complaining about what's wrong with the school and how we shouldn't be accepting this. This is USC, this is UCLA. And there's people who, like, have bad screenwriting classes, bad professors who are saying the obvious, and you're like, I shouldn't be paying for this. There's also cases where people have died on film sets, on student films, out of recklessness, and you would say, oh my God, I wish they had taught us this and saved this life. It gets as dark as that, and as petty as, you know, I just didn't like the professor. And at the end of the day, what matters most is if you can identify who is like a real person next to you that you get along with, that also you can feel trustworthy around, that you like can just have a sincere bond with. It's like a weird form of trauma bonding. Let's say you're going to a small film school that is nowhere off the map. You clicked on a Facebook ad and you completely enrolled, and now you're regretting it because you're there and they falsely advertised the whole thing. I know exactly what that experience is like. Then it's the people that you will meet there that are also going to say, hey, do you find this weird too? And then you are sort of trauma bonded in this odd scenario. And it doesn't have to be a film school even. It could be a film set where the director is crazy, and you and this one person are the only people on the set who are like aware, like, hey, something's wrong here. Because then there's just like this camaraderie that's like a desire to work with each other. And when you're suffering through something and you make it to the end, even if it's a bad film school or a bad film set, like it says a lot to the peers around you, especially the ones that are like dissatisfied. And you get out what you put into it. It is.
I was just gonna, I was just gonna harp on that. Whether you go to film school or you decide to just go about it on your own, you get back what you put into it. And I think social media is kind of the same way. You know, there's film is one of those jobs where people see the finished product, but they don't see the thousands of hours that are put into it before that to bring something to fruition, whether it's writing a script or making a short film or getting a film made, just in general. And I think that there are a lot of unfortunately people out there who prey on naive people. It's very common in the acting world where there's use your instincts, use your gut. If something feels like it's too good to be true, or it sounds like a get rich quick kind of thing, where it's like, oh, come work on this set, and like I'm gonna introduce you to somebody who works with Steven Spielberg's assistant or something like that. I just totally made that up, but I've heard stories like that where people are just they're brought onto projects with a promise that's artificial. It's not really a thing. It's just to get you to come work for less money or things like that. And when you're starting out, I mean, it's you're not going to get paid well, and it shouldn't be about the money. It should be about getting that experience and building those skills. But again, use your best judgment. If something feels too good to be true, 99.9% of the time it is, and that's unfortunate because when it's an industry that it's centered around art and chasing your dreams and bringing those dreams to fruition. I mean, you're looking for those opportunities and those moments where things are going to click and maybe something works out. And again, there's people out there who are going to take advantage of that because, a lot of people, unfortunately, in the industry do want to just be rich and famous. And you kind of have to vet people yourself, whether it's, the people that you hire. I mean, I've seen and heard lots of instances where people say that they either have connections or they have experience or skills that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's tough.
Yeah, it is very tough. And just be safe, don't give anybody money. I don't, especially if let's say you want to be an actor, agents do not take money. They only get paid if you do. And so that's definitely a red flag. If somebody is saying they're going to rep you, but you got to pay first, that's not a thing. And acting classes, if you're going to start taking acting classes, because, starting out as an actor is very hard because it seems like you have to have representation to get auditions, but to get representation, you have to have gotten work. And so it's kind of that catch-22. And one of the things I always recommend is taking acting classes because that will not only build your skills as an actor, but it'll teach you how the business works. And I think one thing to look for if you're joining an acting class is, do they let you sit in on the classes? Because if somebody won't let you sit in on the class, it's probably because they have something to hide. So that's one example. What else can we talk about before we switch here?
I would say that back to one last thing about the film school part. The big plus, if you go to a name droppy school, and what I mean by name droppy is like a California-based recognizable multi-letter thing. So Chapman, UCLA, USC. If you go to that successfully, the odds of that degree meaning much is going to be very, very small unless you go to an agency route and you're trying to be a manager, an agent, or an executive. But it is a very useful tool for people to remember you by for other people that went to Chapman. So for example, if I am trying to talk to a manager and I'm really interested in that manager signing me, or if I'm wanting something out of somebody else, and I am just one of many people that they talk to, but we both happen to go to Chapman, which is a scenario that has actually happened to me. If we both happen to go to Chapman, that alone, I am now in this small pool of like less you can count on one hand, and my phone call is remembered in a different way, and my our relationship currency is different. Especially if they're passionate about it. But even then, you are always, always, always going to talk about how, oh God, yeah, back when I was at Chapman, they should have done this and that. And they have the new class. They're so lucky. I can't believe we didn't get that. And you just, again, it's that weird trauma bonding thing that kind of brings you together. And I'm talking about like, I graduated 2020. I'm having this bond with someone that's like 2014. We would have never known we existed until like, you just say these things. And so, if you're going to a college and a film school, like try for the stars, aim for the stars for sure, because it will pay off in small, ridiculous ways that could lead to, good stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing it's a tough industry because everything can be an opportunity in disguise, but most of the time it's really just people also BSing their way trying to get work. And then the other thing I think to keep in mind about film school is that when you get out of film school, yes, you may have this degree, but you still have to kind of start out like everybody else. So that was kind of the decision that I had to face. I went and shadowed a set on the Fox studio a lot, and I talked to the people there, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to film school. And I think one of like I think it was like the second AD, it was like, hey, who went to film school? And like two people raised their hand. And so I think it just goes to show that you can either jump in with like no guidance and just kind of go with the flow and figure things out in real time, or you can go to film school, get those skills, and you'll still have to start over, but at least you'll have those skills and the knowledge to I guess set yourself apart from the people who are just kind of jumping in. And you know, obviously, again, going back to getting out of something what you put in, it's about how seriously you take school while you do it, and that will translate to the skills that you bring out of it, I guess. Does that make sense? My making sense there, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I didn't go to film school, so it's kind of it's interesting to have those differing backgrounds. But all right, quick ad break. We are officially on Spotify, the video and the audio version. The audio only version is coming to Apple Podcasts very soon, if not already up. And so follow us on Spotify, subscribe to our YouTube, where we also have the video version. And then follow Ben and I on our social media platforms. I go by Danny Dorito23. Ben?
I go by @RealBenEscobar or @GenieBoyGames if you want to follow my creative video game content stuff.
And then we are working on some standalone Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok accounts for the podcast. You can also join our Discord. It is completely free. You can talk to Ben and I whenever you want in there. And we talk filmmaking, anything else you want to talk about that's fun, you know, come in, join the discussion. And there's also giveaways in there. We plan on doing giveaways for certain milestones, like when we hit 100 subs on YouTube, which I think we hit 40 in the first 24 hours. So that's pretty sweet. You know, when we get 10 Apple Podcast reviews, 10 Spotify reviews, 250 Discord members, which we're over 200 now, so we're getting close. If you want to be a part of these giveaways, it is completely free to join the Discord. But if you want to go above and beyond, we do have a Patreon where there is exclusive giveaways that only Patreon members have access to. And there's also benefits such as Hangouts, the Film Fellowship, and all the way up to being a associate or a co-producer for the podcast. So if you want to start building up your producer credits, that is a way to do it for an ongoing project, which is pretty cool. And it starts out as little as $1. And if you want to subscribe annually, that will actually save you 15%, which is a pretty good deal. And then use G Fuel code Danny D for 20% off. Funny little thing. They just said they were going bye-bye, but that may or may not be true. Code Danny D still works. That's all I know. Get you some energy drinks. It is the film industry, social media, all that stuff. Definitely lots of late nights, long hours, and G Fuel is a big help there when it comes to having that energy to push through those long sessions. So get you some G Fuel, baby. All right.
I've wrote multiple. I just want to say I'm not sponsored by G Fuel, but I have written multiple features thanks to G Fuel by writing late at night till 3 a.m. and powering through.
You got a flavor you want to recommend?
Maiden's Blood, but I don't know if they saw that.
Yeah, I don't think that one's available right now. Hype Sauce is a good one.
Hype Sauce is great. Miami Nights. Let me see what else.
I mean, I got a wall of it behind me, and I can like, I could throw a dart back there and hit a good flavor. They're great. They got so many flavors, and it's good stuff. I drink it every day. All right, back to our topic at hand. So now we're going to talk about kind of how to level up that job position that you pick, or positions if you're somebody like Ben and I who kind of wear multiple hats. And there's nothing against that. I think it's very common for directors to either start out in different departments or also be a writer or also be a producer or an actor or all of those things. There's this term called a multi-hyphenate in the industry, and that's somebody who kind of, like Ben said, is kind of like a jack of all trades. But I do want to warn you that, you know, the more positions you try to do, again, the harder it is to get deeper into that knowledge and absorb it all, because there's just so much going on a film set. So choose wisely. They all come with their own responsibilities, and if you mess up, you will get yelled at. It is. That's one thing that I think you can learn from either going onto a set as a PA or going to film school is that it's stressful. I think that's one of the things I gained from the military was that stress tolerance. Um, Film sets are all about time being money. I mean, everybody always wishes they had more time or more money, so you don't want to be the person who's wasting either of those. Ben, do you want to take us into this next little bit here about continuing to work and improve?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say to start out, if you have chosen a position, but also to preface the thing about the jack of all trades thing, it is important to get like your fingers in every single pie as much as you can until you like pick one. And there's pros and cons with like the freelancing life where it's like if you're fresh out of film school and you're just trying to like get some money off of like what your skills have learned are, like I did that for quite some time. I would be a writer, director, editor, and cinematographer for like music videos for artists in the area, and that was a fun way for me to like get to know other music artists. And like actually now I am working with one of the producers of those music artists on producing music for my game with another art. So it's like those connections like last long, and it was because I was down to be that jack of all trades, one-stop shop guy that it paid me for the time being. It gave me material for my reel. And then I was eventually able to like step forward, you know, because I could just own the directing part of it all rather than claiming as like this multi-hyphenate thing. You gotta do it all, but then pick the main one. So let's use directing as an example here. So you are saying I want to be a director, and what I would do first and foremost is identify who are directors that you want to be like, and what are films that you wish you would have directed, or games, or just any work of art. So, for example, if you look at, let's say, I'll just use myself as the guinea pig here. My favorite director is Richard Linklater, and Richard Linklater made movies like Boyhood, School of Rock, the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise, and he also
Confused.
Days of Confused. Oh yeah, that's a good one. He also made this movie that no one's heard of unless you have Slacker on Criterion Collection called "It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books," which is a less than 90-minute feature that he shot by himself on his 8mm camera. That was like way back when, I don't know the year, but it is a very naked, raw, just experimental discovery of himself and also his filmmaking style, and also him just like, if you watch that movie and then you watch something like one of his main ones like the Before trilogy or Before Sunrise, he's talking and asking existential questions in the same way that his characters in Before Sunrise do. And it's a very special thing to be naked in a environment that is just ripping off the Band-Aid and really just putting yourself first. If you don't have an actor, then you need to be your own actor, because the urge to make a movie is so potent and powerful, and to be a director that sometimes you have to direct yourself. I've done that. My first feature was literally me doing exactly that, and I wouldn't have gotten the courage to do that had I not seen It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books from Richard Linklater. And so that's the first step, is really identify people and things that you really love and try to understand why. And then, Derek, you want to continue?
Yeah, so let's say you want to be a writer. I think the first thing you should do is read screenplays. There's, like a million screenplays out there. Pick one of your favorite movies, and then I definitely recommend reading the screenplay and then watching the film and kind of going back and forth between watching the screen and looking at the screenplay and seeing how those words translate to the screen. And then if you were to, go from there, I think starting out by writing scenes and then maybe trying to get some actors together and kind of being the director and filming that scene and seeing how the idea translate is huge. And with each project you do, or each project that you're a part of, you're going to gain experience that should make you better for the next time. If not, then I don't think you're putting in enough effort, because, and again, I think that comes into who you work with. I think I would encourage you to work with people who know more than you, people who have more experience, because they're going to guide you, and just by watching them, you're going to learn how stuff works, because they also come from, you know, sets where they learned from people that were more experienced than them. It's kind of like a trickle down effect that you get. And you know, I think if you want to be an actor, starting out with student projects is pretty common. Don't expect to be paid. Don't expect there to be good food or anything like that. It's pretty cruddy. If I got to be honest, I've worked on several student films, and I don't think any of them actually got finished. That's the sad thing, is that that I guess, you know, that's the other downside to film school is some people are just doing it to get the grade and be done. You know, they kind of want to move on. Um, but to be more positive about it, I have made connections from those student films that led to legitimate jobs. And I think it's important that you treat every job with the same level of professionalism, because that will stand out and that will get you rehired. And we're going to talk about that more in the next kind of segment here about networking and building your resume. But I think creating your own projects allows you to have more control over what positions you do. So if you're somebody who does want to do kind of, you know, that multi-hyphenate kind of, I guess, I guess what I'm getting at is that at the beginning, when it feels like people won't hire you, you got to hire yourself. And I think that's what sets people apart from each other, is some people get lost and they are maybe afraid to try and take a chance on an idea that they wrote themselves. You know, if you want to be a director, then I think you're probably going to have to write your own scripts and direct those so that you could show other people that you can direct. And same thing, if you want to be a writer and start out maybe with short films, then I think you're going to have to write some short films and maybe even direct them yourself. I think it is easier to find somebody to direct your own thing than it is to find somebody to write something for you, especially early on. But I mean, every position on a set is kind of like that. Nobody's going to give you a cinematographer job if you've never been the second AC or the first AC who pulls focus and things like that. Like, there's a structure to it, and you do have to work your way up. Ben, I think we did kind of talk about this when we were first brainstorming for this. Do you think it's actually possible for somebody to start out as a PA and end up as the director?
Depends who that PA was. And I don't mean in terms of like skill. I mean in terms of social
Bill
social
Hader started out
status.
as a PA.
Okay, interesting. I mean, yeah, I do think it's possible, but you know, there's no traditional like this guy worked as 100,000 days as a PA, and I think he should be the director now. That does not exist. It is the PA who's putting himself in the occasion of where the action's happening. I'll give you a loose example of a very realistic way you could do it, and it's going to be not as pretty and clean cut as you think. There's no corporate ladder when you're a PA. You are the coffee runner. You are the last person that they think about. You're one of the lowest paid people on the set. And everybody's looking at you as the person that hates being the PA and knows you want to be them. And so you are a networking punishment, parasite on the set. And so it is like, unless you're a very nice person, like, people just by default will not want to talk to you because they know in the back of your mind you're wondering, how do I shift this conversation into being about how do I like get out of this PA gig and, you know, become the director like you. And some directors, I will say, are very nice if you like approach it the right way, and they will have that conversation with you because they know and they've been there. And a lot of people have humility, and you should keep those guys close. Those are great. However, let's say you're not in that environment. Let's say you are on the last day of your set and it's like a music video or something like that, or it's like a short film with a budget and it's got like enough money to have a wrap party. You as the PA should go to that wrap party, because at that wrap party, your PA status is gone. You're not getting him a coffee at the fucking, what are you gonna go pour drinks for people to drink at the fucking after party? No, you're not.
Yeah, you're just another person who got through this project with the rest of them. So
exactly. And that is the exact environment where they're going to ask you sincerely, with no kind of fear and stress about like, I don't want to talk to PA right now. They're going to ask you like, yo, so what, tell me about yourself. What do you do? And it's those like casual, comfortable environments. If you make it to the last day, if you make it to those wrap parties, or not even a wrap party, if you take up somebody who says, God, I'd kill for a drink after this, anyone down, and then everybody laughs at him off the set, And but then you say, yeah, I could really go for a beer too. And you being the one to go to that occasion, like that's immensely valuable. And it's that sleazy, but it's like it's because it's an emotionally driven thing that makes you want to go from PA to director. That's why I say, what's the social status of this person? It
Just
is, yeah,
don't sound desperate. That just don't
yes,
come off desperate. That's the number one thing. Never do that. Always be humble. Always make sure that the way you're presenting yourself is professional. I've seen it go both ways where I've seen PAs get yelled at because it feels like they're always just standing around not doing anything. Whereas I would say as a PA, you should be constantly asking people, what do you need? Is there anything I can do? And then I've seen the other side of it where there's a PA who's busting their ass. And like when I was on that Fox lot, I saw a PA get asked if he wanted to come hang out in the sound department because that's what he wanted to do. And he had been working hard and really showing that he was willing to put in that effort. Being a PA is a very thankless job. You're like Ben said, you're essentially a runner. You're the soldier, the grunt who's doing all the dirty work. You know, if they do a scene and something gets messy, you're the one who comes in and sweeps it and mops it. Like you're not doing very glamorous work. But again, the good thing about being a PA is that you're going to interact with all the different departments, and some departments will actually have PAs assigned to them. And so if you want to work in the sound department or the camera department on a big set, your goal should be getting assigned to that department. I think I said apartment, right? Anyways, I think that's a great segue into networking because no matter what job you want to do, networking is key. There, depending on where you live, like I live in Albuquerque, which does have, it's one of the major film states. There's tons of networking events year round. And if you want to not only meet people in the film community, but also maybe even get work because people are usually looking for people to work for them, you know, go to these networking events and see what people are doing. Again, have that mentality of like, is there anything I can do for you? But don't say it outright. That should be something that they ask you. Like, what do you do? Is it like, what is your goal in the film industry? I think that also comes down to just good communication and like social skills is letting the other person be the one to ask. But then when you do, be prepared to be like, I want to work in sound. I want to work in the camera department. I want to be a first AD, whatever it is. Have that answer ready and be willing to work for no money and take every opportunity that comes because that's what you got to do when you start out. It's a grind, just like any other job that you're starting out as.
Mm-hmm.
There's film festivals. You want to talk about film festivals, Ben?
Yeah, sure. So the great thing about film festivals is that it is a networking event in itself, but then it's also like a celebration and like a show off of like, you know, who's great and who's not. Is, you know, because there are going to be some films that, you know, if you're the way they work is if you're submitting a short film, you're going to be playing in a lineup of a bunch of shorts that all add up to be 90 minutes when you're watching like 5 of them in a row. There's going to be some that are bad and some that are like knockouts. And odds are, if you're like placed in one of those, regardless of your quality, people are going to come up to you afterwards and like compliment you and want to talk to you. And that is one of the most primitive, like very smart ways of meeting someone that you like and resonate with. I'm not going to name drop, but this is not a name drop, but I'll give you a prime example of how ridiculous that can go about like if you're a director and you were lucky enough to get your short in a selection in a shorts block, then you as the director meeting and networking with the other filmmakers you played alongside afterwards is so valuable. I played at this festival called Danced with Films. It's not even an Oscar qualifying festival. It's like barely, but it's like a big like event in LA and it plays the TCL theater, whatever. There was a short that was shot on an iPhone that was really wonderful. I really loved it. It was this like music festival thing. And my short was also playing in the shorts block. And this director was like one of the few guys that really made it look like he knew how to shoot on an iPhone. And I go up to him after, I'm like, hey dude, like what did you do? This is awesome. Like I really want to, let's stay in touch. And he's like, oh yeah, I liked your short too. And it's like, I was happy with my short. And I was like, you know, yeah, it's real recognizes real in this moment. That fucking guy goes on to win and say the speech for the best picture award for Anora. Because that happened to be Alex Coco, the producer of fucking Anora and all the Sean Baker movies, which makes so much sense of why he was a wonderful iPhone filmmaker, because that's Sean Baker's thing. But
Yeah, Tangerine.
the way he met Sean Baker is going up to Sean after seeing a screening of Tangerine, the movie he shot on iPhone, and said, "Hey man, I want to shoot on an iPhone. Do you have any advice? And I'd love to help you out in your stuff." And this was before Sean was like, Mr. Best
Nora,
Picture.
yeah.
Yeah, or Florida Project or anything. And
Yeah.
he's like, "You know what? Yeah, sure." And then he makes every fucking day count. And that is the greatest fucking investment of his life, because him going up to someone after a film festival got him an Oscar for Best Picture. And that film's like name is on a wall when you're going to Hollywood. Like there's the names of all the Best Picture things, like that. He changed the world. That's insane. But that's also a very crazy case scenario.
Yeah, again, 99.9% of the time, these interactions are not going to lead to work, because you'll start to realize that a lot of people aren't as serious about it as you. But you should treat every single one of them with respect, and with the possibility that it could lead to something, because it is possible. So don't make a bad first impression. And I think that if you're somebody who's listening to this and you're kind of getting lost in the terms like, oh, how do film festivals work? What is a producer? You want to get into how to write a screenplay. We will get into those topics later down the road. Ben and I did discuss kind of starting out with these broad topics and then kind of slowly singling in on specific things. So stay tuned for future episodes. Make sure you follow and subscribe and all that stuff so that you do get to hear about those specific things and have your questions answered. But I think it's important that you don't sell yourself short, no matter whether it is a student film or, it is something that gets into a film festival. Make sure you get your credits on IMDb. There are so many instances where I go to a film festival and then I talk to somebody and then I look up their IMDb and they don't have any credits on there. They only have the credits that somebody else went out of their way to put on there. You gotta put your own credits on there. And you can submit for them. There are tons of YouTube videos on there on how IMDb works. And I mean, I guess we could do an episode on IMDb, but it's going to be really nerdy and boring. So I don't know about that. We'll talk about that in the future. But just know that when you are looking for work, people are going to look at your IMDb. They're going to ask you, what experience do you have? And if you don't have your IMDb, all filled out and with a picture and everything like that, you're going to look like an amateur. And this industry is so much about like faking it till you make it. Obviously don't get yourself in a position where you don't deserve the job you're doing and then you are the reason that something doesn't work and you get kicked off a set. But let's say you are I guess you could be like a first AC and then somebody's like, hey, you want to be the cinematographer? And it's like, if you have enough experience, you should be able to do that. But it all comes down to, again, how much effort you put in. That again is a very exaggerated example. I mean, maybe you have like a one-liner in a short film and somebody's like, hey, I really liked how you showed up and were like the comedic relief there, and I'm making this short film and it's a comedy. You want to, audition for this part. I've had tons of things, tons of instances like that where somebody saw the film that I was in and then gave me an audition because of that. And sometimes it leads to something, sometimes it doesn't. But that's part of networking is, getting involved and getting into those conversations, because even if you do meet somebody and it doesn't lead to something, later down the road, you might run into them again and they'll be like, oh, wow, you're still going at it. And so are they. And then you guys hit it off. You just never know. So, like, again, treat all connections with respect, present yourself well, and, work hard. And then, I mean, like we were just saying, most work does come from referrals, I will say, especially early on. Good work goes a long way. There are tons of people that I've hired for my projects that I worked with on other projects and saw that they were one of the most professional people on that set. So, again, it comes down to how you present yourself. And I mean, we can talk about how Ben and I have gotten hired to do projects because of our previous work. For example, Ben and I did Pollo Loco, which is a short film that I kind of treated as my film school and put a bunch of money into, and went out and hired local people and just kind of winged it, went for it. And luckily I had Ben there to guide me when it came to co-directing, because I had never directed before. But that project made such a good impression with an acting teacher that I had taken classes with that when a group of students had a scene that they wanted to turn into a short film, that acting teacher recommended them reaching out to me. And that's what led to me getting hired to direct this short Hunters, which I'm about to start putting into festivals. So that's just one of the many examples. Ben, you got an example like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good idea to be constantly showing your work, and also you're showing your work without realizing you're doing it. And I think like ways like social media, where you're constantly just showing, hey, I'm on a film set today, or I'm making this, or posting it, even though you're not sending it to people like in an email, like that's people will naturally watch that from you, and you become a respected you know, director or whatever role you're in. Um, I was at a family party. I'll talk about how Derek and I got on board the script we're writing that we haven't announced yet. But I was at a party, a Christmas party, late last year, and my friend's dad was throwing it, and he knew because my friend was a person I met in film school who was my roommate, and I was hanging out at his parents' house because I've gotten to know that family well, and they knew that I had recently sold a show to Sony as a producer, and I'm like doing that project on a TV show. And the dad was like, "Hey, you should meet this guy who is also in the film industry because I think he has some projects too." And it was just like, oh, hello. And then I just meet this guy who's an executive, and like we totally get along. We have so much in common. We know the exact same stuff. We're working on the same things. We might be working together on my show because he primarily works in a VFX company, so they might be able to do VFX on my show. And there's like a lot of crossover. But then I get to know that guy, and he refers to me as like, "Hey, I know you're like also trying to be a writer and stuff. And aside from this producing thing, like, would you be able to crack at this project with this other friend I have?" And I was like, yeah, let me meet him. And then I meet him, and then I loop in Derek, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let me bring in my writing partner. And because I know Derek's work, having worked with him and like all these things, it's just this domino effect of referral meets referral meets referral meets referral meets referral. And then we have a whole happy project, because it's the simplest way I could put it is when you're in school and the teacher says we have to do a project, but it's group projects. Does the class cheer when they say, "And I've assigned your groups already," or do they cheer when they say, "I'm going to let you pick who's in your group"? Obviously, everybody loses their minds when everybody gets to pick who's in their group, and that's exactly what film is. And they're not very happy when they don't get to pick. So, yes.
I think it we've just hammered in so much that it's the amount of effort that you put in that makes an impression. And I mean, like Ben was just saying, that he had seen the work that I've written, and that's why he was confident in recommending bringing me on as a writing partner. And that's why I was confident in bringing him on as a co-producer for Hunters, because I knew that he could be an extra hand there and another person with experience that would just enhance the overall result. And if you're somebody who's starting out and you're like, well, why isn't anybody coming to me and asking me if I want to work? Are you really putting in the effort? Are you going out of your way to work for free and do those projects that need somebody to kind of take the initiative, or else they'll fall apart? Because that's what happens a lot early on. These smaller projects end up only working out because somebody steps up and says, okay, we have to follow a vision here. We have to figure out how to make the script work, or we have to figure out how to use the limited camera equipment we have, or the lighting equipment, or whatever it is. And again, I think the motivating thing here to think about before we kind of get into how to decide if the job is right for you or if you should try something else is whatever job it is that you want to do, or other jobs you're thinking about doing, the information is out there. I get asked so many times, how do I start writing? Start writing. Like, go look up how to write a screenplay format. You want to be a director? Go look up what it's like to be a director. I mean, Masterclass is very affordable, and freaking Ron Howard and David Lynch have courses on there. Rest in peace. There is knowledge out there. You just have to go look for it and find it. And if you can't even do that, then maybe it's not the right industry for you. You should be excited and should have the desire to learn, because that never stops.
Agreed.
Right?
That's very well said. Um, yeah, I think kind of talking about how you understand if it feels right for you is just like, does it feel forced? Are you like annoyed by the amount of work that you have to do, or are you excited to do it? Let's take the example of a cinematographer. A great way that a lot of them get work is Instagram. It's the same way as like a photographer, except like you are a cinematographer. And if you find one that you look up to, which you should have, if you've kind of followed the steps before, then you're probably following them on Instagram, right? Now, ask yourself or just ask your phone, what is they posting on Instagram? And you'll see it is a still from a movie that looks fucking great and it's their shot. And they'll tag the entire crew because it's an incentive for the entire crew, if they were a first AC, second AC, or PA or everybody, to repost that to their story to say, look at the cool film I'm working on. But the DP gets to say, look at the cool film I'm working on that I happen to shoot. And this image speaks 1,000 words. That image getting sent to somebody else who's working on a film and is being reposted by like all 10 people on that set creates jobs for everybody else on there. Do you need an AC? Do you need a DP? Do you need anybody else? That is like such a crazy way of just getting a referral. And your Instagram will speak 1,000 words because it's showing your work to people who are an executive that's following you and a job creator or other directors who are wanting a DP that has your style. And I think Derek brought up a good point by if you're asking yourself, why aren't people offering me stuff? Do they know where to find you? Do they know what your stuff looks like? Can they send it to their friend on Instagram? Because there's other people that are being sent in those DMs that are a lot easier to access than you. So anyway, does that feel right for you? Can you like see yourself constantly pushing that that narrative about yourself, and do you enjoy it? Are you happy with that being the way people see you from the outside in? Can you see yourself doing that from 10 years from now?
Yeah, if you get a job as a boom operator, right after that set wraps, if somebody, I literally got offered work as soon as another set wrapped once before. Like it happens because people will enjoy working with you. They're going to be like, hey, I'm about to go on to this other project and there's a position open. What do you think? If them bringing up being a boom operator feels like nails on chalkboard to you, probably not the right position for you. It should feel like something that as soon as it ends, you can't wait to do it again. And if you are really meant to work in film, I think you will find the position that makes you feel that way. I think a lot of people have this over romanticized idea of what making films are, but it is work. And I mean, I know a lot of people want to be directors, but again, like Ben was talking about, being a director means you need to know what all the departments are doing. You need to know how to be able to communicate your vision to them. So while you might want to be a director, you kind of do have to go put in that groundwork and kind of figure out, what is it like to be kind of next to these different departments? What are they doing? Did they just say something that I have no clue what they said? I don't know what that vocabulary is. Give yourself homework, write it down, go back later and figure out what they were talking about. And through that, like, I mean, when I went and shadowed on that set, I was hanging out with the sound department, and somebody was talking about how, like, yeah, dude, you should come be a boom operator. Look, all I do is I stand here and I do this, you know? And I listened to these guys talking about it, and then there was an issue with the sound, and they were scrambling to figure out what it was with, you know, the mixing board and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I don't think sound is something I want to do, and that's okay. You know, there's so many positions. There's something for everybody. I mean, my wife found out that she likes practical effects. She had a lot of fun on Pollo Loco doing the leg gag. And so she's like, yeah, someday when, you know, we don't have 2 kids that we have to raise, she might want to go try and shadow and get into special effects makeup. But the only way you're going to find out if that's what you want to do is by getting on a set. And I think the best way to do that is being a PA. Or, like I said, creating your own projects. But you are bringing on a lot of responsibility. I talked about it in my Instagram story today. Quentin Tarantino very famously started making a film on the weekends. It took him 3 years to finish, and then when it was finished, he went to go edit it and realized he didn't have what he needed to tell the story. Essentially, it was a mess. He couldn't use it. But instead of going, maybe this isn't for me, I messed up, he took that experience and that knowledge and the mistakes and learned from them, and he turned around and made Reservoir Dogs, and the rest is history. So I think it's important to stay motivated. Yes, there's going to be good and bad sets, but the one thing you can't control is your attitude, how you present yourself, I always try to think about it as if you're on a set and it's not going well, everybody's kind of miserable. You could be that one PA who's like, who needs water? Do you guys need coffee? We're going to get through this next take, like just try to be that shining light, because people will remember like, hey, that one guy was a really good PA. And the next thing you know, somebody's offering you a PA job when they're hiring for another one. So, keep all of that in mind. Try other jobs, experiment. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn. Just don't bite off more than you can chew, and start to narrow down your interests. And then it comes down to the same process that every career field or profession is all about. It's trial and error. Always aim to improve. Even if it sucks, try to learn from it. There's always things to be learned. Even like on good sets, when everything's going great, stop and think, why is it going so well? Like there's always something to learn. Never be that PA who's standing around and gets yelled at for not doing anything. And I mean, I think we're going to kind of wrap this up here, but I think the important thing to remember when it is hard is that it makes for good stories. I mean, anytime I've seen something ridiculous happen on the set, I'm like, oh man, that's going to be something interesting to talk about, with people that I do work with, like Ben. I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe what happened on the set. Again, bonding through trauma, right?
That's right.
But yeah, we're definitely going to get into specific job titles more in detail, like what a PA actually does and stuff like that later down the road. Let us know in the comments what jobs you want to hear about the most. We were just talking about how Isaiah Nichols, one of our associate producers for the podcast, he wanted to know more about what makes a good producer. So that's definitely a topic we can get into. And I mean, that's the cool thing about doing this podcast the way we are, and how the episodes are a little smaller, is that we're able to, talk about so many different things. And so, yeah, give us that feedback. Let us know. What do you want to know? We are open books. I think now we're going to kind of wrap up the episode by talking about what we're doing, so you guys can kind of hear about, where Ben and I are in our career. We're not going to get super into detail. Again, we could do a whole episode on like what our current projects are. But Ben, do you want to start off just by talking about what you're working on?
Sure. So my main stuff on the film side is I'm focused on video game adaptations, which means acquiring the rights, like the adaptation rights to an existing IP that happens to be a video game, and then taking it to a production company to make into a film or a TV show. The first project I started with is a game that has not been announced. The game is out, but the project has not been announced yet. I'm going to save it for when it's public to say the title, but it is set up with Sony and PlayStation Productions, the same team behind The Last of Us. It is not a PlayStation game, I will say that, so don't assume it's that. It was from the outside of the PlayStation library that we brought in, and we've been in development on that for the last 2 years, and I'm very excited to hopefully get an announcement out about that at the end of this year or top of next year, because it's definitely close. Aside from that, I have moved into video game creation myself, because I think writing and directing in that medium is really special to me in a way that I haven't tapped in yet, and I find it to be very fulfilling in a way that film isn't just quite yet, because there's big ideas and ambitious kind of nature that I have that I'm always kind of compromising when I'm indie filmmaking. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just want to like go a little unleashed on a video game and see what happens. But yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. It's you just listening to that, guys. I mean, he's talking about a passion project, and it's been 2 years and he's still working on it. So if you're worried and confused because something you've been working on for a while isn't happening yet, it is a grind. It is. That's kind of why I think Ben and I have so many plates spinning at once, is because we know that the more we do, the more likely it is that one of those things, it's kind of like a numbers game. Obviously, don't stretch yourself too thin. Make sure everything you're doing, you're actually passionate about, because if you're not, then people aren't going to get excited and want to move forward with it. But that project Hunters that I got hired to direct, that is just about done. We're doing the final color pass right now. I actually learned about Kelvin levels and how the white balance being off in the metadata can actually ruin how the film looks. So we fixed that hiccup, and now it looks way better. But it's again, it's this filmmaking is a process that you're constantly going to be learning and making mistakes and learning from. So trial and error. And then I actually just finished a feature length script for what is probably going to be my first feature. It's called Around Midnight, and it is about a family who is trying to move on after a tragic incident, and they start to realize that the grandfather's house might actually be haunted. So that's fun. I actually just sent that first draft out to Ben and some other producers that are going to be working on it with me, and hopefully shooting that before this next summer. So that's exciting. I want to kind of try something new here since we have, a new podcast and everything. I want to end the episode by talking about something we're looking forward to in the next couple of days to weeks. Just to kind of end on like an optimistic, positive note, because if you pay attention to the film industry right now, there's a lot of doom and gloom. It feels like there's always something that people are upset about, whether it's AI or a studio buying another, less work, or there's going to be a strike or something. So, Ben, what's something that you're looking forward to here in like the next week or so?
I don't know.
Filmmaking related.
Filmmaking related. Okay,
Yeah.
I would say I'm really happy with the reception of some of the movies from Venice. I'm really excited to see The Smashing Machine. I'm really excited to see Lurker this week. It just came out. It's one of the most best regarded Sundance movies, and I've been really excited to see that. And I don't know. I just really love from the writing and directing side of like game development. Today I wrote the opening scene from I'm writing a screenplay for this game right now, and I had wrote the opening scene about last week or so, and we finally just like put it in the game, like tested it out, and like did the needle drop I wanted to do, and like it has like the opening title card and credits part of it too, and I was just like, just as a rough like placeholder stuff, like it was so insane to see it and just be like, oh my god, this is such a good feeling. And so I'm excited to see more developments of that because it's definitely keeping me chugging along daily. But yeah.
I'm very excited to finally wrap up Hunters and get a poster made so I can release that and start working on a teaser so we can start submitting to festivals. I'm also looking forward to seeing The Conjuring Last Rites this week. That looks like it could be the best Conjuring movie since the first. I hope I'm not wrong about that, but that's what the early buzz is saying. So
Wonderful news.
I think I'm gonna go see that with Jorge. So that'll be fun. We
That's
actually
fun.
saw I saw Weapons a second time. Jorge saw it the first time. We saw it in 40X, and it actually added to like the scares. Normally scares don't get you, but because of the seats moving at the same time, it like kind of forced you to get that reaction. So it was very interesting. Definitely recommend checking out 40X if you have one near you. But that's pretty much it. Just to kind of tease what we're going to be talking about in the next episode. Again, we don't have a set schedule, so this could be coming out in the next couple days or within the next week. But we're going to be talking about the current state of the industry in the next episode, which again is kind of a mixed bag in terms of optimism and a little bit of doom and gloom. But I definitely tend to lean on the optimistic side, and I think so does Ben. Otherwise, I don't think we would still be doing what we do. But look forward to that. And again, that we're just starting out. This is the beginning of the podcast, but I am Derek Bowder.
I'm Ben Escobar.
And this is the Fellowship of the Script. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon for the next episode. Until then, keep creating, keep pushing, keep telling stories that matter. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next one.
Later.